Ladies and gentlemen, loyal members of the Cover Killer Nation, and I told you that there was a very special video that was coming today, something that was going to be very personal, and something that I've never done before. And I intend to deliver. There are many albums in my collection. Let's face it, I have over 60,000 separate MP3s. I have a CD collection that touts in the thousands, which I just was able to show you in my CD collection video. Which means that there's plenty of reason for me to have a Hall of Fame, plenty of reason to have CDs that I'm going to believe to be the best of the best, something that deserves to be enshrined forever. However, this is something I've never done. I've never actually retired a CD. Never retired an album after years and years and years of repeated listening, not to mention sentimental, personal, and musical value. So I intend to do that today. This album right here is probably one of the most defining albums of the 1990s that has gone so completely unappreciated, not to mention seldomly bought by individuals, that it's almost criminal. Pushmonkey's self-titled album followed up their first album, which was entitled Maze, that was released a couple years prior to Pushmonkey. The only way I actually heard about this band was from a short-lived radio program called Edge of the X, which brought new music to the masses every Sunday night with a guy by the name of Vinny right here in the Pittsburgh area. It seemed as though he kind of liked Pushmonkey a little bit as he played a couple of their songs one night and would continue to put some of the songs off of the Pushmonkey self-titled record in rotation. So this was one of those albums that I grew to appreciate prior to even picking it up. This was the earliest form of try before you buy. You actually listened to it on the radio, and that determined whether or not you're going to go out and give this album a shot. Truly 1990s philosophy here, folks. But at any rate, I ended up going and picking up the record, and I have to say that immediately after I was blown away. This is one of those records that seldomly gets the appreciation that it deserves because it's something that is seldomly heard by enough people to actually have that sort of appreciation. This is an alternative record that is unlike anything that Pushmonkey has done in their 3-disc catalog, which, well, may not seem like that huge of a testimony because it's only 3 albums. However, this is the middle record. This isn't a breathtaking debut that just was never realized again because it can never be realized again. No, this was the middle album, actually. This was the middle child, so to speak. And this is where it seemed that Pushmonkey developed their stride and really had honed their sound just enough to know what the limitations of it were. They found a nice, what you could call, alternative bubble, where they were able to experiment and really factor around all of the differences that they had as musical artists among the band, but at the same time still collectively merge together and create a fantastic record. And you can tell. There were songs that you heard on the radio. In fact, they had a breakthrough hit with the song Caught in My Mind, which circulated a lot, mostly around college stations. This was a band that a lot of college kids ended up really growing to enjoy because of the song. However, whenever you listen to it with the rest of the record, it actually is one of the weaker tracks on the album. It's definitely the most commercially accessible track on the record. However, whenever I think about singles from this particular album, I think about songs such as Lefty or Hand Slide. I also think about the song Cut the Cord. I think that would be a really excellent song. And if you're wondering, Lefty is kind of the hard edge opener that you could definitely hear. You have Drowning Pool doing it with songs like Step Up or with, Tear Away. This is something where it was almost like a Pushmonkey's Step Up. It was really kind of anthemic. The song like Hand Slide, it was a little bit more of that teeter-totter song where it sort of starts off with a very slow tempo and then explodes into the chorus, into the verses. It's a song that you really it reminds you a little bit maybe of Seether perhaps, but not really so much in the way that it's played. This is 1990s alternative played at its very best. It doesn't really have too much modern influence as it kind of stands apart on its own. And then whenever you think about the song Cut the Cord, this is what you would consider to be the ballad. This is the one that would really kind of catch people. It's a very interesting song. The lyrics on it are extremely dynamic and has a lot of personal meaning to the band themselves. And whenever you listen to it, it just kind of gives you that relaxed feeling, that calm feeling. And it's just a very fantastic song. Now, these are the songs that I could have seen as singles. Now, there's, of course, songs that I wish were singles. Let's face it, this album is full of them. However, the one that comes to mind readily is the song Ashtray Red. This is the hard song on this record, the hardest song that Pushmonkey self-titled album has to offer. And it's got a real message to it that I think could have taken off. And this is kind of a strange way to look at it. I mean, typically whenever you hear the word message, you think of something positive, but this is actually one that sort of illustrated in metaphor what the new drug culture really was going to become. And for me, at least, whenever, say, the year 2000 came, it was the most brilliant metaphor I could think of kind of the innocence of a child moving on into the really non-innocent life of a man. This is, of course, for me, I'm around 16 years of age. This is where you see the drugs, the smoking, the sex, the booze, the rock and roll, the metal, everything just finally take off. And this is really the turning point for my particular generation, because after the year 2000, after you had the boy and girl group craze, from whenever my generation was 14 and 15 years old, that's whenever you saw the rise of rock and roll. That's whenever you saw the rise of alternative, where you saw emo come into play for the next generation. Oh, God, I hope that's not what it's going to grow into, because, God damn it sucks. But you saw metalcore rise. You saw alternative take a twist of fate. It was just fantastic. It was almost like the perfect way to open the gates right into that particular structure and right into that culture. It was a bookmark, and it was fantastic. Now, of course, there's one song, actually, that I never would have wanted to see as a single. And this will probably surprise a lot of you because I reference this song a ton. And that's the song Limitless. Limitless is probably one of the most sexually charged, but yet at the same time, beautiful songs that I will have ever heard. You can definitely tell the sexual metaphors within the lyrics, but at the same time, it's done in a very romantic way. Tell me, if you're a girl out there, don't you want to have a guy say to you that I've got the key to your everything? It itself could be performed or perceived as a metaphor in and of itself, but it's absolutely beautiful. The soundscape that's behind it, the music that's behind it, is arguably one of the best works that I've ever heard as well. Simply because it does what I always stress that bands need to do more of, and that's set atmosphere, set tone, and set exactly the mood that this song is supposed to represent. This song, of course, has a great deal of personal significance to me personally, because I share it with someone very special to me, someone who I love more than anything in the world, and it's something that has been a decade-long reminder of that. However, this is, of course, just one song on a body of work that is altogether one of the best. This is one of those albums where you almost wonder why more people didn't know about this. But for me, it was actually a little bit strange because you hear his voice, and whenever you listen to Maze before, he's got a very strong and powerful voice. It definitely accents the music. However, it's something where his voice was actually found on the self-titled record, where all of his wicked range shifts were actually eliminated, not completely, but just sort of bunched together and harmonized a little bit, and kind of toned down a little bit, and structured. And that's what caused this to be just incredible. But of course, with that said, it's time to officially retire this disc. It's one that I will continue to play. I have it on my computer, and I don't know where it is, but it's something where this album right here, Pushmonkey, the self-titled record, has had such a profound effect on my life. Not to mention, it has been one of the most inspiring albums to me. That it deserves its own spot in Cover Killer Nation lore and Cover Killer Nation history. So I think it's only right that it gets put away. Put away in a spot where it can forever remain in reverence. Not desolation through reverence, by the way. And I think a fitting message should be etched upon this, especially considering the season. What's that message, you might ask? The message is something very simple, but very powerful. do not open until Christmas. Yeah. I know you'll get it. Everyone else might not, but I know you will. And that actually concludes the very first Cover Killer Nation CD retirement ceremony. Thank you very much, guys, for witnessing this special event with me, and joining me for it. And I'll talk to you guys next time.